Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. Tonight I am going to be talking about Mongolia. So I have sectioned this off into 4 different talks. There was just so much that I did and saw here over the month that I was here that I just couldn't fit it all into one talk. So tonight I'm going to be talking about my travels, the tours, and the toilets. So, and among a few other things that I'm going to throw in there as well. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below. And next week, we'll be just doing episode 2 of Mongolia. Next week, I will be talking about festivals, costumes, and thieves. Oh my! So I'm going to jump right in here because I have a whole lot of photos to show you guys. So I was in Nepal when I started planning my trip to Mongolia. I didn't do a whole lot of planning. I basically booked my ticket over there. I booked it for about just over 3 weeks, so about 25 days or so. And then I started doing a little bit of research, and I was looking on there and suddenly realized I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to afford being in Mongolia for this long. Everything that I was seeing, tours and whatnot, were very expensive. They were in the thousands of dollars, and that was, for 7 days or 2 weeks and stuff like that. So I didn't know what I was going to do, so I went ahead and started researching a lot more, and I took the advice of a lot of the blogs that I had come across on how people traveled in Mongolia, because they know, and it's going to be totally different the way that I would travel here than I had been traveling all along. Now, on my travel, I didn't book anything. So the only thing I booked was I booked a hostel in Ulaanbaatar for 3 nights. So I gave myself 3 nights to figure everything out, and then get going to do something. It all worked out. And this is what the airport looked like. It was a small airport, but I was surprised at the amount of cowboy hats, cowboy style hats that everyone was wearing. So very interesting. Now, one thing that you do find out very quickly is in Mongolia, you cannot travel like you would in other countries. So you can't really travel on your own. You do have to take a tour, because there are roads like these. There's no street signs. Once you're out of Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital city, there's no street signs. There's no basic roads. There's like one major road, and then you go off onto all these like little side roads, and there's no signs. No one speaks any English outside of Ulaanbaatar, and you get to see very quickly how you could become lost for a long period of time. There was actually one couple that I had spoken to in my hostel that I was staying at, and they had just come back from the Gobi Desert. And so I was asking them about it, and they said, oh yeah, we rented a truck, and then we drove to the Gobi Desert. I'm like, oh really, how'd you do that? They're like, well yeah, we got lost for 3 days. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that nixes that for me. I don't need to be lost for 3 days trying to find somewhere. So these tours and these roads, you go through the rivers, you go through dirt, you go through everything. I loved watching all the rest of the trucks because you hardly see anything when you're out and about on these tours, because the place is so big and there's so little there that you just see like these little roadrunner type streaks through basically the countryside. And this one here, this was an army bridge, and this was the second truck of our tour, and we were on the other side telling them to move over because he was precariously close to the edge of that one side. Now, when I got here, I had written down some of the research that I had done through going through all the blogs, and one of them had said to go and talk to the tour companies in person in Mongolia when you get there, because they're significantly cheaper than booking them online prior to your trip. So that was what my plan was. I'd written down about 4 different tour companies that I was going to look at that I had found people recommended. The first one on my list was Sunpath Tours. And they actually ended up just being what I wanted. And I didn't even look anywhere else. And they were significantly cheaper. I ended up doing 2 tours with them, and I was able to negotiate the price because I ended up doing 2 tours with them. And I find that you're able to negotiate a little bit on the price when you do it in person. So that's what happened. I had a list of the things that I wanted to do here. And so I was kind of seeing which tours would work for me. And I got everything on my list except for one. The one thing that I didn't get on my list was going to see the eagle hunters. And the only reason I didn't do the eagle hunters is because I was told that the eagle hunters are only really worth going to see in the fall because that's when they're active. So I'll plan to go back there and see them at that point. Now from here, I ended up doing 2 tours. So the first tour was a 15-day tour, and the second one was a 10-day tour. Now, from here, I was able to fit everything in among a lot of other things that I didn't know I wanted to see. So I did get to see one of the local Nandam festivals. I was able to go horseback riding on Mongolian horses multiple times and in multiple days. I was able to go visit the reindeer tribes and hang out with them for a few days. And then we also went to a number of ancient monasteries around there and some monuments. Went to the Gobi Desert. I rode 2 humped camels. I got to see an inactive volcano and tour and just kind of trek around there. I was also able to see this is the White Stupa. Basically, it looks like the Badlands, like identical to the Badlands. But I was able to go over there. Also look at the Flaming Cliffs. They call it the Flaming Cliffs because at sunset they look like they're on fire. Very, very smart. And then lastly, among other things, we also went to the hot springs that are in Mongolia as well, and they were pretty cool also. Now, there was certain things that happen in Mongolia that you don't really realize that are going to happen. One of the things is getting money out. So Mongolia is a closed currency. So basically what that means is you cannot get money prior to your trip. You have to get money in the country. And also remember to change back your money before you leave. I didn't because I didn't know. And I have a bunch of Mongolian money ready for me to go back. But yeah, you have to do everything in the country. Now, this makes it a bit of a challenge because the tour, most tour companies, at least the one that I went to, was cash only. So basically you had to come up. My first tour was $900 American. And so going around, you had only bank machines that you were able to get money out of. So it became a full day of walking around to find as many bank machines as you can to take out enough money to be able to pay for your tour, plus your spending money and everything else. So it became quite a challenge because not all bank machines will take your particular card. So it was a transition of using credit cards, using bank cards, and using different bank cards or different credit cards and trying all different machines. Once you find the machine, you just look for those machines. So also when you book the tour, they tell you some supplies that you should be bringing. You have all your regular stuff that you have with you, but there's certain things that you want to have purchase before you go on your trip. And I had read about some of these in the blogs, which is actually really important to do. I think reading some blogs of people that have actually done these tours or experienced places helps a lot, because one thing that the blogs mention that the tour group doesn't mention is bring a pillow. And the pillow was my serious lifesaver, and it was the best thing that I purchased. It was just a small, like little travel pillow, but it was fantastic because you're in the trucks for a very long time. Now, this is the department store that I went to. Very busy department store, and also has a grocery store down below. So I got my pillow there. I got wet wipes because you're not going to see a shower very often on your tours. I think in the 15 days we might have seen it twice. There's also lakes once or twice as well that you could dip into, but they were way too cold for me, so I was just not. So wet wipes are your shower. Also stocking up on candy and snacks, just because you never know what the food is going to be like, and you want something to snack on while you're there. Plus, it's good to make friends and share your snacks. And then toilet paper. You want to make sure that you have enough toilet paper with you. Now, we also stopped here when we were on our tour. This was our first stop for them to pick up supplies, but it basically was Costco in Mongolia. It wasn't called Costco, it was their warehouse, but it was identical to Costco, and I became that tourist that was taking pictures in Costco. Now, the vans that we take are these. They're old Russian vans, and they are brutes. They will survive through everything. I hear that they will go for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, and they rarely break down, and if they break down, they're very easy to fix, and they'll go everywhere. So there are other tours that use like Pathfinder type trucks. We rode in one just for like an hour until we transferred into these ones here, and it was night and day. These ones are so much more roomier, and just being able to stretch out a little bit more than just in a basic back seat of a car. So it was super nice. The drivers were very proud of their trucks. Every time we stopped, he would come out and just wash down any places that got dirt and mud on it. You're with other people, obviously, your tour mates in the truck. On this particular tour, there was 3 of us in one, and then four people in another. So there was 7 of us on the first tour. On my second tour, there was 4 and 4. So it was good. The trucks seem to have 2 different configurations. One like this, where the seats are behind each other, which I prefer, and then the other one is where the seats are facing each other. They're all right. I had that on my second tour, but I much preferred these ones here. Now, when you're going on these trucks through the tour, they are, you're there for 8+ hours. You're just driving over the countryside. You can just watch the countryside go by. If you get car sick, I don't necessarily recommend going to Mongolia because it is a lot of road tripping. Another thing about Mongolia is that they love to sing. Like, karaoke is huge here, and our driver definitely loved to sing to his music that he would play. And it was all Mongolian music, and I'm pretty sure it was the same 4 songs for the whole 15 days. And Mongolian music really only has 4 different types of music. They only sing about Mongolian horses, the landscape in Mongolia, or love. So those are the 3 things that they will sing. They all sound the same, except for the horse one. You always know when it's a horse song because you have a horse neighing in the background. So we always would have a good giggle. So headphones are highly recommended to have with you, because then you can listen to your own music and kind of drown out the Mongolian music for all the time that you're in the truck. Now, food is something that people are always thinking about. Mongolia is not the place to go to if you are a foodie. You definitely don't come here for the food. It is, it gets very boring, is probably the best way to say. Now, on the tours, we did a mix of restaurants, and then also our guides would cook us meals. So it was a lot of noodles, and it was a lot of meat. So Mongolians are all about the meat. They think vegetables are a waste of stomach stomach growth. So that's how I used to think, back in the day. But it was a lot of mutton. Mutton is the meat of choice here, and you definitely do get tired of eating mutton. They have dumplings. Pretty much every country has their own version of dumplings, and they're always delicious. So I would usually get the dumplings at restaurants. And then we would just park in the middle of nowhere, and they would crack out, the supplies and cook us or make us lunch or dinner. And Then at the end of every tour, they do like their big cookout, which is just a variety. Basically, it's potatoes, carrots, and meat. And the meat is stacked in between hot rocks. So there's hot rocks in between all the piles of meat, and then they cover it and they let it cook for a few hours. So it's very delicious, and it wasn't mutton, so we were all happy to have something other than mutton, but they also did use tofu and whatnot. Now, another thing that you're going to be eating while in Mongolia is different things that you do for the locals. What happens is when you go to a new place and you're staying with Ingers and stuff like that, you go and meet the family, and they're very, very welcoming people. They may not speak any English, but they're all very welcoming. And you go in, and they're always going to have certain things. So this here is the milk tea. You're always going to get served milk tea. Some places it's a lot more saltier than others. They usually put salt in it, but it's mostly milk and just a little bit of tea flakes, and then they just boil that on the stove. Now, this isn't your usual milk. Depending on where you are and what they have, what animals they have, is the milk you're going to have. So I ended up having horse milk, reindeer milk, camel milk, and yak milk. All were fine. I had no problems with it. Some other people on the tour had some problems with it. I must say that the yak butter that I had was the best ever. I would definitely pay for yak butter. Another thing that they also serve, they just serve what they have on hand. So basically that could be anything. So here is some pastries and some dried cheese made from that specific milk. Some places are very fancy and have the innards of the animals. All of us stayed away from that. The drivers, definitely dug into having that. But another thing that's very strange about Mongolian food is that they love to eat the fat from the meat. So they will have chunks of fat and just plop that into their mouth. They have actual stewed dishes that are just with, instead of meat, it's just the fat from the meat. And there's the cheese. So they'll always have cheese usually. I tried all the cheese. It's a hard cheese, sort of like Parmesan, but just a different taste. I had no problems with it. People would give me their cheese sometimes if they didn't like it. Fresh bread. There was always usually fresh bread that they made. And then drinks. So vodka is obviously very popular here. I would always get the Genghis Khan one because, when in Mongolia. And it was delicious. And then once you get off the tour, you will see the tourists that have just come off a tour, because the fast food joints in Ulaanbaatar are packed. So your Burger King, your Pizza Hut, KFC, all those types of chains you can get there. So you don't have to starve. If you don't know what you're going to eat, you do have chains in almost all places. So everyone would always come back and have that. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is the toilet situation. This is probably one of the most challenging things for people to come here. Obviously in Ulaanbaatar and, in hostels and stuff like that, they're going to have actual toilets. But when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're visiting places and whatnot, they have toilets what are called the long drop. Now, you can probably guess why that is. Most of them are very long drop down. So it's basically just taking a pee or taking a poop, and you got to get it in between the slats, and you got to have really good balance, and just make sure there's no critters around. So I would usually, squat and then just hold like one finger on the wood in front of me so I didn't fall over. And hand sanitizer helps a lot. Now this one here was at the reindeer tribes, and it's not like these toilets are really close to the camps for obvious reasons. And obviously some are dug deeper than others. But this one, where the red circle is, that's where the camp is. So those are the teepees back there. And that's where how far you had to go to get to the toilet. Not a good thing when you gotta go. And yeah, there was one time where I was speed walking down trying to get there in time, and it's not like you're fully covered, so not that there's a whole lot of people walking by anyways, but you're just waving your butt in the air into the countryside. Now this one here was at one of the camps, and it looks pretty decent, doesn't it? This one smelt the worst. And you basically need to, any of these toilets, you're going to be mouth breathing. And so you just want to just forget about it and just go and get down and get your business done. This one here, again, they're just all makeshift. You know, you dig the hole and you have a couple planks and you just hope that the planks don't, don't wobble while you're on there. Now, this is one of the critters. If anyone could tell me what type of bug this is, it kind of looks like a murder hornet, but it's not. It doesn't have wings. But this is usually found around in the toilets, more out in the deserty type area. So yeah, found these bugs in around the toilet areas a number of times. Pretty freaking scary. And yeah, again, beautiful. You got a room worth of view, but yeah, you got to be hustling to get to the toilet, and definitely it is a BYOTP. You know, bring your own toilet paper. Now, that is the end. I'm so happy I got through that so quickly. Now, here is where to find me. You know, you can go to my websites. You can follow me on Instagram, join my Facebook community, or you can email me if you have any questions. I am going to be going through a lot more next week. And then lastly, I put together a travel planning workbook for everyone, so you can download the link there and have that workbook to be able to plan your next trip very easily. So you can definitely do that. So I hope you guys have a great night, and I will see you next week when I talk about all the different things about, I can't remember. Festivals, costumes, and thieves. So there's lots to talk about there. So I hope you have a good night, and I will see you guys later. Bye!